They drifted, completely disoriented, unable to tell direction. Jose hurriedly took out the navigation device, and after 3 to 4 hours, they realized they were only 20 to 30 kilometers from the coastline. The rain had eased significantly, and they could vaguely see mountains on the horizon. But now, they faced another crisis. The massive waves had severely flooded their boat. If this continued, they would sink into the ocean. To lighten the vessel, they stopped the boat and threw all their caught fish back into the sea. Survival came first. Then, they used buckets to bail out the water. After much effort, they managed to save the boat, but unfortunately, the engine lost power. Jose tried several times to restart the engine, but it was useless. With no way to rescue themselves, they used the radio to call for help. However, their navigation device had been damaged by water, leaving them unable to report their exact location. Their only choice was to wait for a rescue team, but finding a 7-meter boat in a storm was like looking for a needle in a haystack. The two men stared at each other, helpless. To make matters worse, another heavy storm began. The distant coastline disappeared again, leaving them at the mercy of the raging waves. Cordoba was terrified, clinging to the boat, crying and praying for safety. After an unknown amount of time, Jose tried the radio again, but now it was completely dead. The once calm Jose began to panic. They drifted aimlessly for days, too scared to sleep, fearing they would be thrown into the sea. They were cold, hungry, and exhausted. By the 5th day, the storm had finally passed, but now, they had run out of food. All that remained on the boat were 2 buckets, a spool of fishing line, a knife, and a storage box. Everything else had been thrown overboard or lost to the sea. They attempted to repair the engine, but lacking tools and knowledge, they had no choice but to give up. Hunger forced them to focus on food and water. Jose bent a piece of wire from the engine into a makeshift fishing hook. They caught fish and ate them raw, drying the leftovers for storage in case they failed to catch more. During the storms, they had never thought to collect rainwater. Now, they were desperate. The sun was relentless, and every drop of water in their bodies was evaporating. With no other choice, they cut plastic bottles and resorted to drinking their own urine. On the 10th day, a sea turtle swam near the boat. They caught it, drinking its blood for hydration and eating its meat for sustenance. Whenever they saw floating debris, they would grab it, searching for anything useful. Sometimes, they were lucky enough to find moldy bread, cartons of milk, or even a carrot, delicacies in their dire situation. After nearly 2 weeks, the first rainfall since the storm arrived. Overjoyed, they stretched out their arms and drank directly from the sky before frantically setting up every container. They had to store the precious fresh water. They bathed in the rain, feeling relief for the first time in weeks. They spotted large cargo ships twice, but were too far to signal for help effectively. No matter how much they waved or shouted, the ships continued on, unaware of their existence. 3 months passed. Cordoba was deteriorating, unable to adapt to the harsh environment and prolonged raw diet. Weak and motionless, he lay on the deck. Days later, he succumbed. His death shattered Jose. The conversations they had kept their spirits up. Now, he was alone. He continued talking to Cordoba as if he were still alive, refusing to let go. For 6 days, he kept the body on the boat before finally removing Cordoba's clothes and lowering him into the sea. Jose saw passing ships, but none noticed him. Then, on January 29, 2014, he woke up to see land in the distance. He frantically checked to make sure it wasn't a hallucination. Overcome with excitement, he wanted to swim there but feared exhaustion. Instead, he found a small wooden plank and started paddling toward the island, terrified of being pulled away by ocean currents. Hours later, as night fell, he finally reached the shore. Before the boat could even touch land, he jumped into the water and swam to the beach. On January 30th, a couple found him. When Jose returned home, he turned his ordeal into a book. However, Cordoba's family sued him for $100,000, suspecting that Jose had survived by cannibalizing his friend. They argued that his book profits should include compensation for Cordoba's death, but with no evidence, the case was ultimately dismissed.